Hi, class. Now I'm going to talk about the gas giants, which would be Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. So the first one and the fifth planet in our solar system is Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is the fifth planet from the sun. It has at least 79 moons, so it has a lot of moons that orbit it. Its size compared to Earth is more than 300 times the size of Earth, and its length of year time to orbit the sun is 12 years. So, in the time most of you have been born, it hasn't even rotated around its sun yet, because it's 12 years. Most of you are younger than 12 years. In my lifetime, it's only done it twice, and it's on its third round. Because I'm not 24 or 36. Length of day time to complete a rotation on its axis. It's 10 hours. And it's the largest planet in our solar system. It's called the king planet, and it's because it's the big one, and when you can see it from the sky, it's very bright. And it's got a great red spot, and that's called its storm. And we call it the Great Red Spot. So here's a picture of Jupiter. Its great red spot is right there. That's its storm. It's more than 300 times the size of Earth and has 2.5 times greater mass than all the other planets in our solar system combined. To put things in perspective, though, Jupiter's mass is 1/1000th of the sun's mass. Now, Earth is not directly next to Jupiter, but if it were, this is what it would look like. So the Earth, that's Jupiter. Lots of Earths could fit in Jupiter. Even though the planet is huge, Jupiter rotates every 10 hours. This quick pace creates high winds that form distinct bands of color in the atmosphere as ammonia crystals and other compounds swirl around the planet. These bands of color make it appear as if there's a large bulge or belt around the equator of Jupiter, where it does actually bulge due to rapid rotation. Jupiter has a massive magnetic field and a ring system. Jupiter is often the fourth brightest object in the solar system. Only the Sun, Moon, Venus, and sometimes Mars are brighter. Jupiter was first visited by unpiloted probes in 1973. So, it's bright enough to see from the Earth. And there's certain times when it's bright enough to see from the Earth. And usually, like the news will report about it because Jupiter is it's one that we can see from the sun, from Earth, but we don't see it as often as other times. And so I think I remember last year, a few years ago, Jupiter, Saturn, and some other planet were going to be aligned. And that was a rare event that doesn't usually happen. And so everybody was like, stay up and see this, where Jupiter, Saturn, and this other planet, I can't remember which one it was, were all going to be aligned in the sky. And you'd be able to see it, and it'd look like a giant star. And as they passed, you could see them getting further and further apart. We actually stayed up and watched it. It was such a neat thing. We saw it right outside of our house because the way that it was positioned, it was very, very bright in the sky. And it really did. It looked like a huge star. And it was great. It was something that they hadn't seen for like 800 years. And so it's very exciting to see. At least 79 moons orbit Jupiter. The four largest moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto were discovered by Galileo in AD 1610. So Galileo was a famous astronomer, and he discovered a lot about our solar system that we know now. And he disproved a lot of what they previously believed back then. The moon Io has hundreds of active volcanoes. Europa may have a liquid water ocean on it. Callisto is about the size of the planet Mercury that we talked about earlier. And Ganymede is even bigger than Mercury. And these are all Jupiter's moons. Jupiter's surface has violent hurricane-like storms with terrible wind, thunder, and lightning. One storm on Jupiter has been going on for hundreds of years and is 3 times the size of Earth. It is called the Great Red Spot. So that was the thing I showed you earlier. And it's a storm that's been going on for a long, long time. So, our next planet is Saturn. In the line, it would be near Jupiter, but it's after Jupiter, and it's the 6th planet. So, this is an image of Saturn. You can see its rings, for which it is quite famous. And we can see its rings with a telescope. So, Saturn. It takes a long time to orbit around the sun. It's the 6th planet from the sun. Its number of known moons is at least 82, and it's 95 times the mass of Earth. And the length of years it takes to orbit the sun is 29 years. So it's orbited the sun. If it started the day you were born, it still hasn't orbited the sun. Because none of you are 29, except maybe your teachers. The length of day it takes to complete a rotation on its axis is 10 hours and 40 minutes. And its most unique physical feature is its prominent rings. And it's the least dense planet. Remember, these are gas giants. And can be seen from Earth. Saturn is the 2nd largest planet in the solar system, but it's actually the least dense of all the planets. It's so light it would probably float on water. How could this be? Well, Saturn is composed of a rocky core surrounded by a sea of liquid metal. Its surface is made of 96% hydrogen and 3% helium. Since Saturn is mostly made of gas, it is less dense than water. Saturn is surrounded by rings composed mainly of ice crystals, dust, and some rocks. Some of these rocks are as large as mountains. So it has at least 82 moons. Its largest moon, Titan, is actually larger than the planet Mercury. And so 5 of Saturn's many moons are named Mimas, Hyperion, Iapetus, Rhea, and I can show you some of its moons, although we're only going to make the planet and not the moon. These are how different its moons can look. That would be Titan, Mimas, Hyperion, Iapetus, and Rhea. Those are names that they made up for the... Now, all of these names are human-made, so humans named them. Usually, whoever found them got to name them. And sometimes they named them after themselves, but most of the time they picked something in history with significance. So Saturn's dazzling ring system has memorized stargazers ever since Galileo first saw the rings through his telescope. While all 3 of the other gas giants have some too, Saturn's are the most visible, so that's why it's known that way. Saturn is truly a unique planet. This spectacular planet is a beautiful reminder of the variety of God's creative designs. So, Jupiter and Saturn. And The next planet that's a gas giant is going to be Uranus. Now, Uranus is another cold one. And it's the seventh planet from the sun. It has at least 27 moons. And its size compared to Earth is that 63 Earths could fit inside of it. And its length of time to orbit the sun is 84 years. And the length of a day, time to complete a rotation on its axis, is 17 hours and 14 minutes. So remember, we're measuring it in our time. Okay. And its unique physical features are that it practically rotates on its side with large dark rings. So it's on its side, like it got flipped over compared to the others. And it is the coldest planet, which is what I said in the beginning. It's a very, very cold planet. Here's kind of an image they've created of Uranus. So it's the third largest of the gas giants and the coldest planet in the system, with an average surface temperature of 210 degrees Celsius or negative 353 degrees Fahrenheit. So it is often called an ice giant. Like Saturn, Uranus has a large ring structure with 13 bands that we can see. Its rings are much darker than Saturn's rings. So the rings are not as evident, but in this picture they kind of make it look a little more evident. That's just another picture. And Uranus appears to be a smooth blue-green ball. The color comes from the sunlight reflecting off the methane gas in Uranus's atmosphere. This shows Uranus's size compared to that of Earth. That second picture I showed you, if Earth were next to it, is what it would look like. So, lots of little Earths could fit in that because they're so big. And if you're wondering, a lot of those planets are large because they protect the other planets, and their gravity is so strong that it will deflect things like asteroids and meteorites. And so that's what it's for. So Uranus and Neptune are both called ice giants. These types of planets have a solid core, but they do not have a solid surface surrounding the core. The thick layer around Uranus's and Neptune's cores is liquid. Above the liquid layer is a gas layer. Uranus has such a large axis tilt, about 98 degrees, that it practically rotates on its side compared to the other planets. Each of Uranus's hemispheres receives 42 Earth years of sunlight and then 42 Earth years of darkness. So it's gonna always be dark or it's always gonna be light, and it alternates. Uranus has only been visited once by spacecraft. The Voyager 2 in 1986. We know that Uranus has at least 27 moons, but there's so much about this planet that remains unknown because it's only had one visit by a spacecraft. So they have less opportunity to know about it. Whereas if they'd have more and more updated technology, they could have found out more about the planet. But it's just so far away. It's very expensive for NASA to create these spacecrafts, and to go that far takes so much fuel that it can get really expensive. And so sometimes they just haven't sent anything out yet towards Uranus. So the next planet and the last planet is Neptune. And it's the 8th planet from the sun and the farthest from our sun. And it's cold. It's not as cold as the other one, apparently, because Uranus is the coldest one, but Neptune's pretty cold because, remember, the further from the sun you are, the colder you will be. And the closer to the sun you are, the warmer you will be. So the number of known moons on surrounding Neptune is 14. The length of year to complete an orbit of the sun is 165 years. So we're not even going to joke about how old any of us are. None of us have been around for that long. So it does not go in what we would think of. It does not go around the sun very often. Now, to complete a rotation on its axis, it's 16 hours and 6 minutes. And its unique physical feature is its vivid blue color. And it's the windiest planet in the solar system. So Neptune is so far from our sun, and it's fascinating. It has at least 5 or 6 faint rings around it. Because Neptune's rings are so dark and faint, they were not discovered until the 1980s. That's also why you don't always see them in pictures. Neptune also has clouds of frozen methane swirling around it. Scientists think there might be an ocean of boiling water under Neptune's cold clouds. But remember, they don't know any of these things. When they say think, they just think. They just assume, or they wonder, or they hope, but they have no proof. Neptune may be the windiest planet in the solar system. Winds tear through the clouds at more than 2,000 kilometers per hour, or 1,200 miles per hour, in American measurements. The winds blew Neptune's great dark spot, a storm as big as Earth, across the planet at 1,100 kilometers per hour, or 700 miles per hour. That spot has disappeared, but new ones have appeared on a different part of the planet. So it seems like they didn't discover Neptune's rings until a spacecraft went out there. The Voyager 2 made it to Neptune in 1989. Voyager 2 revealed fascinating details about Triton, Neptune's largest moon. Part of its surface resembles the rind of a cantaloupe ice volcano spout, a mixture of liquid nitrogen, methane, and dust, which instantly freezes and then snows back down to the surface. Triton is the only large moon in the solar system that circles its planet in a direction opposite to the planet's rotation. The Voyager 2 spacecraft took a photo of Triton on August 24th, 1889, at a range of 330,000 miles. And it was taken through green, violet, and ultraviolet filters, and in this technique, regions that are highly reflective in the ultraviolet appear blue in color. In reality, there is no part of Triton that would appear blue to the eye. The camera makes it look that way. The bright southern hemisphere of Triton, which fills most of this frame, is generally pink in tone. That would probably be what it would look like from our vision. But this is the picture they took. Remember, the coloring is because of the filter of the camera picture that it was taken of. Those pictures were from NASA's website. And this is what NASA's website made Triton look like. Remember, Triton is a planet, is a moon surrounding Neptune. So, that are the facts about Neptune. It is the last planet. It's the 8th planet. And, well, we have the least facts about that one. And it does have active and visible weather patterns. And it does have a great dark spot comparable to the great red spot you remember us talking about in Jupiter. So, um, well, that's it for talking about the different planets in their order. And Galileo is one of the most important people known for finding these things out about the various planets. He did a lot of research. And and so he made a big difference um, in all of the information we have about space and especially our um, knowledge of the planets. He saw a lot of them, even if he didn't quite realize what he was looking at, but he did find a lot of them. And um, so it was mathematically okay. So it was rare, and that was mathematically predicted before it was directly observed. So they predicted it before they would be able to observe it with their eye or their telescope. Telescopes have progressed over time and become more powerful to be able to spot these. At the time, British Astronomer Royal. And so over time, they've used the telescopes to see these planets. But originally, Neptune was one that they just thought was out there. They didn't have any proof of it. And it's the same for dwarf planets. They also were discovered by theory instead of actually being seen from planet Earth. But they have they've just discovered it and they've made more advancements over time. So the stuff that they may have known about or learned about in 1600 or the early 1600s has changed in the 19th century and on into the 20th century, the 21st century. Just over time, they've discovered more and more as technology has helped them do that. And so, even over the last 20 years, we've discovered a lot more about the planets in our solar system and what they look like, what their surface looks like, the moons that are around them. And so it's been quite a discovery, very fascinating. That's the kind of stuff that you learn about. There's a lot more to learn about, but these are just the planets that we're talking about right now. And they all orbit around the sun, which is a star. And so stars are different than planets. And yeah. So I hope you have a great rest of the class.